Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 28 in the book of John. We're in John chapter 4 today. Turn there. Today is going to be Are You Spiritually Curious? Because we're going to meet a really curious spiritual person, and it's a great attribute of hers. So, yesterday, we on the other side of this meeting, it was Jesus, and we have a weary Jesus sitting at a well. And we learned that a weary Jesus is a wonderful Jesus. He's on this divine appointment to this rich city that's full of history, much of it bad. It's a city that has this great history of Jewishness, which then got kind of turned and perverted to the point that they were sacrificing their own children by burning them to gods that didn't exist. So they had really messed up. Needless to say, they were getting their spirituality wrong. They were getting the relationship with God wrong. So they had bended and truly broken their relationship with God. So into this historically Jewish, now a contaminated city, walks Jesus. And the people here present themselves to the world, like we all do, as, hey, I've got this all together. I'm right in my thinking. Essentially, I don't need to be curious, to our point here today. They didn't wake up on the day that Jesus was coming and questioning the faith of their families. They woke up basically saying, like we all do, I'm good, I'm okay, I've got this. It's just kind of our own spiritual pride, or at least spiritual confidence. So here's the story. It's from John chapter 4, verse 6. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour, noon. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone to the city to buy food. I think that's hilarious. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask me, a woman of Samaria, for a drink? For Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans." Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water?" So 10 observations here today. First one, Jesus is wearied, and we need a weary Jesus who came all the way down from heaven, put on human flesh. No weary equals no cross equals no salvation. So I'm glad Jesus was tired. That's was in yesterday's lesson. Number two, it's high noon. And we find out that this woman later on, we'll find out that she has a very active marital life, 5 husbands, and an active sexual life later. And scholars say that the women of most cultures will go and get their water when it's cool, early in the morning, because it's such an aerobic activity because water is so heavy. So the point is, she goes to the well at high noon in the hot of the day, heat of the day, because she's an outcast. But we find out she has this divine appointment there. Number 3, this point I just thought was hilarious. Nobody sends 12 men to the grocery store. 1 is best, 2 is okay, 3 maybe, 4, I don't know if you need so many groceries to carry. But 12 guys, it's the only time in the history of the world that 12 men were sent to the grocery store to get food. And why is that? Well, I think Jesus shooed them out of there and made them go so that he could have this encounter with this woman, because nobody, even Jesus, doesn't send 12 men to the grocery store. Number 4, Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. No kidding. So devout Jews don't even want the dust of their land to touch them. Because there's so much bad political and spiritual history, as we talked about over the last couple of days. Number 5, men did not interact with women in this way. So typically, the Samaritan woman would have been unseen, unspoken to. And we see in the story that Jesus is going to see her. He's going to know her spiritually. He's going to know her sexual history even. And this is going to surprise her, certainly, and undo her. So Jesus is going to be curious to her in a way so that she can be curious to him. Number 6, give me a drink. So all this background, all this history, all this context, all this culture that we've talked about, and then you get the start of the actual encounter with Jesus. And he takes the initiative to see her and save her. And this thing of even speaking to her, so bold, it's in her face, And it starts a challenge, if you will, and it also introduces this theme of water, which we're going to be talking about. So there's historical water. We all know all kinds of physical stuff about this water. We know it's historical. We know who dug the well. We know that it's a deep water, that it's a deep well. We know that it is accessible, but Jesus doesn't have any way to access it, doesn't have any tool. We know that it's temporary, that it will temporarily satisfy. We know that it is. That's enough about the water. But the essential point is number 7 is now it's not just regular water. What we're really talking about is not this regular water in the well and the tools and the thirst that comes with it. What we're really going to be talking about is living water, which is this gift of God sent, in general to mankind, but really specifically to you right now in your face, and it's offering this woman a chance to respond. Number 8, Jesus tells her that there's something that she doesn't know. In other words, he says basically, you're ignorant about this. If you only knew what was happening at this moment, if you only knew what has happened for me to be here, all that emptying. I was in heaven, a few years ago, and now I come all the way down to humanity, and I march to your city, and I'm weary by this well. Why? All for you. Number 9. You must do something. So this whole story is a great story about Jesus, but it's also a story about her. So Jesus is asking for her participation in this process of inquiry, curiosity, this bold rejection of history, or at least the willing to put it aside for a minute and talk about it and really consider it. These are the kind of people that God can work with, spiritually curious people. So they're going to continue this conversation from water, it's going to move to spiritual thirst, it's going to move to spiritual hunger, behavioral sin, correct worship, and then the source of salvation. But step 1 for all this is number 10, which is curiosity. So people that miss worship are very confident that they're correct. So we all come with baggage and history and family and sexual body counts. But what this woman comes to Jesus with is a curiosity, a willingness to stay with Jesus. So how do you get off your spiritual wrongness? Well, it's a long process, and it's going to be. In the story is actually a very, very long story in Scripture. But the first step, the step number 1, is curiosity. So curiosity is how she starts this process to get to know what he offers, and then to receive what he offers, which is living water and himself. Stay tuned. Thanks for listening.